All right, welcome back to MorningLine, everyone. Nick Barris here on this Monday. Hope you're having a good morning so far. Again, we are streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com if you want to send a comment or question there. And of course, we're also here on the Plus. We'll get the phone number up there. The big question right now as things start reopening, how is the economy going to do? Is there a recession that's going to be prolonged? What about how people will be doing business differently now with what we've learned in this pandemic? We're going to talk more about that this morning with our guest from over at Lipscomb University, Professor Joe Ivey. Good morning to you, sir. Can you hear me?
I can, Nick. Good morning.
Good to see you. Thank you. Loud and clear, and you framed yourself up nicely. Thanks for joining us. You know, we had Speaker Sexton on earlier in the show just talking about the reopen and monitoring things as they go along and questions about the economy. And certainly cities like Nashville struggling. You hear about businesses that may or may not be able to reopen under the circumstances even now that they have an opportunity to do so. The way it looks right now, I guess if you want to talk from either nationally or more specifically the state of Tennessee, where does the word recession come into play?
Well, the word recession comes into play kind of in a broad sense as any type of prolonged economic decline. And whether you think about technically if we're in that situation right now, we all know that we are, even though it may not have been declared. And really recession begins to affect us very individually. We all know people who have lost jobs. We know people who have had their income cut dramatically. So we're definitely in a regional, national, global recession at this particular point.
All right, so as we start seeing things open up, you hope that's the first step to trying to solve some of that crisis, get people back to work, get the money rolling, the revenues and all of that. I mean, how long does it take, and what are some of the hurdles as maybe we look at the fact that there are some states doing things differently than others, so there's not a uniform policy, but how quickly can things return? And maybe make a comparison to what we went through in 2007, 2008. I know that's a very different set of circumstances, but could the economy come back quicker, yes or no?
You know, it really does depend. I know that's not a satisfactory answer, but there are a lot of different circumstances that are going on here. This is the recession aspect of this is definitely an economic issue, but the healthcare aspect is what's going to drive it. We actually, in 2007 and 8, knew that we had a financial crisis, and we knew some of the steps that could be taken to solve that, and there was legislation that moved in that direction. With this particular virus, we don't know if we have it contained or not, and it's that lack of certainty that makes it very difficult to decide or to determine how long this recession may last. If we get good results from having loosened things up, then the recession will be much shorter. If we go into some type of second wave or even minor second wave, then that's going to shake people's confidence again, and that could cause the recession to be prolonged. I think it really is a situation where it's the confidence of the consumer that's going to drive this, and there are a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, I saw a study on that this morning in terms of consumer confidence. I mean, I'm someone who believes that I think it's good that businesses are opening right now, and that the important part of that is that you continue to maybe take some of the precautions as you do reopen, all right, along those lines. The question then is, too, if businesses open, where is the consumer confidence? And about 50% of the populace out there now polled says that they think, okay, it's high time, let's get back to it. The other 50% say it's too soon. I mean, businesses can open, but will the consumers return? And I should say this, looking at some of the businesses I was talking earlier around Middle Tennessee, seems like, you know, they're getting business. Folks are making their way back there, and there's lines outside the doors.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think you're going to see that. I was very thrilled when my barber decided to reopen last week. So I think you're going to see some of this pent-up demand, but that 50-50 split that you just talked about shows the real difficulty. If only half the consumers have enough confidence presently to come back, then that's going to be a problem for a period of time. I do feel like as more people go back, there is going to be kind of a multiplier effect to that. If I went to a restaurant, I've told people that I've gone to a restaurant, then that's going to give people confidence as they listen to me and my experience. But it could take a while, and it may take a while for particularly entertainment and leisure type businesses to build back up. People are going to be reluctant to get into crowds, those kind of things, for quite a while, I believe.
Let's take a call for you. We've got some calls coming in, comments online as well. We've got Jack, I think, might have a question for you, sir. Jack, go ahead. What's your question?
Well, actually, I've got two comments.
Okay.
The first one is on the health front, and it feels to me like a lot of our fellow citizens have a death wish, and we're playing Russian roulette with two bullets in the pistol. And the way people are behaving is just totally irrational. I know they want to get out. I want to get out. But it's not just about them. If you're young and you're, not going to have to worry too much, you don't think about this disease killing you, you could still end up killing others by carrying the virus while being asymptomatic. On the financial front, I absolutely agree with you that the Department of Labor here in this state and the federal government more broadly has completely blown this game. It's pathetic beyond belief. People live paycheck to paycheck, and they can't wait months on end to get unemployment. We bailed out the airlines in a New York minute. We bailed out a lot of the big companies. We bailed out the people with money. I mean, the Congress put in tax cuts for hedge fund managers, real estate developers, in the bill to help us recover. This is insanity. And it really says what I would say is the truth about America. We take care of the rich first and foremost, and everybody else, well, just hold on to your hat.
All right, Jack, thank you. Do you want to comment on that along the lines of who's getting help first, Professor?
Well, I believe that it is important to realize that we are dealing with things that are very unprecedented now, and the federal government and the state governments have all taken actions that have not been seen in quite a long period of time. I do encourage folks like in small business to begin to look at some of the programs that are still available. There's still over $100 billion of the PPP funds that are available, and although there are some difficulties in accessing those originally, that access has become much more streamlined now, and I think that will have some positive effect. I know that even in the state of Tennessee, we have talked about how the folks that we mandated to shut down should be first in line for some of the assistance that comes about. One of the things to keep in mind as we begin to support businesses economically is that is the only way to support jobs economically as well. Businesses, small and large, are who employ people. And so we have to support the businesses in order to ultimately support the employees. On the other hand, the issues that we have with unemployment and access to unemployment are things that do need to be straightened out, because folks are in very dire straits. We all know people who have become unemployed or who've had their income reduced. 40% of the people that are making less than $40,000 a year became unemployed during this whole process. So we have to get that right as well.
You know, last night on 60 Minutes, the chairman of the Federal Reserve basically was talking about how it looks like there's the possibility, we could see, when the very latest numbers come out, 25% of all Americans out of work, something along those lines, which is just devastating. I mean, think about that, a quarter of all Americans. And then there's the question, and I know the House has passed something that we understand is going to be dead on arrival in the Senate. How much more can the federal government then do to help with the economy? Some people wondering, will there be second stimulus checks? There's nothing like that in the works right now. But do you believe, and we've already seen many Americans, millions, have already received their stimulus payment. Do you think there's going to be something more the federal government's going to have to do in terms of directly sending something to Americans, or is it going to be more broad-based, focused on business and maybe the health industry as well?
That's going to be a good question. I think, Nick, you brought up kind of the third part of this whole solution that we've got to think about, that once again makes this a little bit difficult to understand where we're going to end up and how long it's going to take to get there. We understand the economic issues. We've just been talking about those. We've had a great deal of discussion about the health issues. But the third dimension of all of this is the political season that we're entering. We're entering into a presidential season. We're entering into where all of our congressmen are up for re-election. A third of our senators are, a new president. And I think everything is going to be put through a lens, a calculus of what's going to be beneficial politically. And that's going to play itself out differently at both the state and the national level. And so it's really hard to predict what's going to happen, because I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to be what is absolutely best. It's probably going to be what's most politically expedient.
Listen, we're going to take a break. Stay with us. Can you stay with us, sir? We'll be back with our next segment, and I've got some questions and comments for you as well coming in on Facebook. If you have a call, you can give us a ring as well as we continue our conversation with Joe Ivey, professor of management over at Lipscomb, talking about the economy and where it goes. Sir, stay right there. We'll be right back after this break.
It'll be good.